What the fuck is up with it? Look at that.
So an axiom is I have eyes.
Again with the axioms.
I look. I have hands. I touch.
Yeah.
I see.
And then it's an axiom that every single time you're gonna see the relationship between the circumference of a circle and the diameter of a circle is pi. It's whatever a ratio. I forgot what the ratio was. Well, it's a relationship between these two things, and it's pi, and it's an axiom. You don't know if it's true or not because you do not have every single circle. You have to really draw, experience, see every single circle in existence that has ever existed, that is existing, and that ever will exist to have to prove it. You cannot prove it. Keep drawing circles, keep matching the ratios. We cannot prove it because you cannot do all of them. They're infinite as many, theoretically. So how are you gonna do that? You cannot do it. That's an axiom. Pi is an axiom.
One chair. I call it chair because I see that it is not another thing. There is thing and there is other than thing.
Yeah, that's called definition and contrast and separation between things. How do you know if it's two parts or one whole thing? You have a separation between the two parts.
It's not that fucking hard. That's all an axiom is. I see it. That's how it works. I don't mess with it. That's how it is. It has left. It has right. It has. That's how it is. Prove that left is left and right is right. It just is. You have to find something else that does not follow these laws to prove it. Find something that doesn't exist to prove that something exists, pretty much, or to disprove that something.
Yeah, you have to find a circle in which the ratio between the relationship between its diameter and circumference are not. It's not pi. It's not that number. And then you have disproven it. How do you prove that it is pi? You cannot, because you cannot draw all of the circles. So, what do? I don't know what we do. Shut the fuck up and go.
Or whatever, to attempt to do something. And that's what an axiom is.
That's all it is.
You cannot prove. You cannot.
Same with the postulates of Euclid. You and no, you're not gonna say, but there is non-Euclidean geometry. No, there is, but we're talking about planar geometry. In a plane, if you have a point and you have another point, the shortest path is a line, straight line. So that's how it is. That's how nature is. Why does electricity always choose why do electrons in an electric field flow to the shortest path possible? Potential what is fucking say? Electric potential, which is voltage. Why does it do that? Why does pressure seek to be more I forgot what it says. The same thing with the pressure. They seek equilibrium. Why does it seek equilibrium? It doesn't have to, and we don't know if it does. It's an axiom. It's a law, axiom, whatever the fuck. That's how it is. We don't know. We have to. We have to find. We have to find something that is not that to disprove it, or have to find have to experience every single occasion in which all. I mean, that's impossible. This is infinitely as many. So you have to experience every single circle. You have to write down every single circle in existence. I don't think that it doesn't work like that. It's like it's paradox. I don't believe in paradoxes. I believe in misunderstanding. Let's see Zeno's paradox. Let's go with that. Zenon. Zenon.
An ancient Greek philosopher famous for inventing a number of paradoxes. Arguments that seem logical, but whose conclusion
I don't believe in paradoxes. It's most likely a misunderstanding, a wrong premise.
is absurd or contradictory. For more than 2,000 years, Zeno's mind-bending riddles have inspired mathematicians and philosophers to better understand the nature of infinity. One of the best known of Zeno's problems is called
all this shit is magic. All this shit is magic. It's not. This shit is some occult stuff. All mathematics is. I don't know why they don't. I don't know why they don't find it weird. You can literally affect something. Imagine you living before there were airplanes and before there was electricity, and now you get to live in a world where you have a map on your phone and a talking bitch on your phone, Siri that's annoying you, and all that kind of stuff. So how would you? That thing is unthinkable, and you take it for granted. Well, it's just It's magic. It's magic. You have these little things that you can't even see called atoms, electrons that they couldn't even see it, but they figured out it's magic. That shit is magic. You have fields that you can't see that move things. I mean, that's literally what magic is. That's literally what they want. Like they do a magic trick. I mean, it's magic. It's not normal. I don't know what people. It's normal, but maybe there are even things. I don't know why. Then when the next big thing that's unimaginable comes, and people try to, some genius tries to explain it, people are like, oh dumb, like it's been done so many times. Can people understand that there are things that are out of the ordinary? I mean that it is ordinary. It's just that people don't want to believe that it's ordinary. I don't know why people are. They close stupid and close minded.
the dichotomy
paradox,
which means the paradox of cutting in two in ancient Greek. It goes something like this. After a long day of sitting around thinking, Zeno decides to walk from his house to the park. The fresh air clears his mind and helps him think better. In order to get to the park, he first has to get halfway to the park.
I mean, read fucking Socrates, read all the books that are ancient. What a shame that you can't even understand it. It doesn't really. I mean, if you try to read it and you understand whatever little bit information they say in the books, it's been told through 3,000 years, retold, written by people with their own opinions. It was never written by Socrates because he never wrote anything, and I agree with him to an extent. Because why? Because people stupid. They have all the books. They don't want to understand them the way they want to understand them. So they understand them to manipulate others, and it don't work like that. They don't want to understand how the person wrote it or what he thought. They just want to boost up their ego bullshit.
This portion of his journey takes some finite amount of time.
You have to seek truth, like Socrates said.
Once he gets to the halfway point, he needs to walk half the remaining distance. Again, this takes a finite amount of time. Once he gets there, he still needs to walk half the distance.
These kind of paradox, like if you know about the wheel paradox of Aristotle, Archimedes, I don't remember. But you have like a point on the outer edge, and you have a point on one of the inner concentric circles, and they say, why does this point travel more distance and this travel a shorter distance, but they all meet at the end of the line? And I'm like, well, yeah, and it's a paradox, but it's not a paradox because then they figure out that the wheel slips and they travel at different speeds. So that's what I mean. There's an explanation, so it's not a paradox. The same. I don't believe in paradoxes. I don't see that. It's a misunderstanding. You think it is one way, but it actually is another way. They're actually moving it. That's just my opinion, but I think that's what it is. I don't think paradoxes exist.
Which takes another finite amount of time. This happens again and again and again. You can see that we can keep going like this forever, dividing whatever distance is left.
Yeah, but then you have to ask the question: where does this thought even come from? Why would you even begin dividing all this kind of stuff
into smaller and smaller pieces, each of which takes some finite time to traverse? So, how long does it
finite and infinite
take Zeno to get to the park? Well, to find out, we need to add the time
does he ever even get there
of each of the pieces of the journey. The problem is, there are infinitely many of these finite-sized pieces. So, shouldn't the total time be infinity? This argument, by the way, is
What is this guy on, man? This guy is
completely general. It says that traveling from any location to any other location should take an infinite amount of time. In other words, it says that all motion is impossible.
Then what is motion to begin with? You go back to Socrates, and they always fought Plato and all these dudes, Diogenes and all these. When we came with a chicken, and because the guy would say, how do you define a human? A featherless, bipedal, whatever, something like that. And then he came in with a chicken without feathers. He plucked the feathers and said, "This is your human," because they got so mad and they fighting all the time, but because of their opinions, So, I mean that don't makes no sense. I mean, I mean, you have to define what you're talking about. And Socrates is right because when he said, "I know that I know nothing," and he was the wisest for saying that. The Oracle of Delphi said. So he went to the Oracle of Delphi and asked, "Who is the Snow White? Who's the fairest of the all?" He went to the because he seek to know, like, cause he met a lot of noble people, a lot of educated people, a lot of rich people in ancient Greece, and he said, why are they and it's like, surely somebody else has more money or something, is the wisest. There are a lot of people that claim that they know everything. And then the guy went to the Oracle of Delphi. I don't know. In English, you say Delphi. It's probably Delphi in Greek. And they say, well, why? Who's the smartest of them all? Who is it? And then he say, you are, Socrates, because you know nothing. So, because you cannot prove what is knowledge anyway. And there's a lot of good things about knowledge, because he talks about that. It's interesting because you gotta go into that weird spiritual shit, because everything here is weird anyway. Just you existing and you don't remember anything before. It's weird how you come in life and you don't know anything, and then you die, and where do you go? These are big questions. So the guy Socrates said, he was trying to explain to Phaedo. I don't remember who it was, or it was from Minos. I don't remember what, Mino or something. Phaedo or Mino, one of the books. Socrates goes and explains, well, give me your slave boy, not like black slaves. They had slaves from white or whatever. The skin color doesn't matter. It's just slaves. Back in Greece, they had slaves of any color, pretty much. I don't believe they were racist back then. They had black and white people living together, so they had slaves from like Germanic tribes or something like that, from like anybody who was a barbarian or some shit they called, that wasn't Greek. So, and they had a slave boy and said, explain how do you and he didn't have any mathematical background, and he started explaining how the square perimeter of a square, the area of a square, and he said if 8, he started counting all that. It's a long story. You gotta read the book, Phaedo or Mino, and it says in the book written by Plato, because Socrates never wrote anything. It said, the guy is remembering everything. It seems like he already knew it before, and he's just remembering. And he said that we might have experienced everything already at one point before coming in this world as we are, and he's just remembering them, which is really interesting because it makes sense. It almost feels like you're remembering when you and then memory is important because it plays a big role, because when you're born you don't remember anything, and then you remember. It kind of makes no. It's kind of weird. Nobody ever asks these kind of questions. They always say you crazy or some shit, but they're just being stupid. They're judgmental and really stupid and really unintelligent. You have to. Everything is weird. I don't know. That kind of stuff you cannot omit. You can't brush off. So most likely it is like that. It is interesting.
This conclusion is clearly absurd, but where's the flaw in the logic? To resolve the paradox, it helps to turn the story into a math problem.
And everybody is like, I hate the educational system. I hear it, I just in his voice you can hear everything is about one upping everybody. It's not about do you really want to know, it's about I'm gonna one up you. And everybody got their information from the same source. They never read a book and started thinking and imagining and is it really like that, and using their own experience. They just took whatever fucking thing is for granted and accepted it without even questioning anything, and then trying to one up everyone. Because in this book it says that it is that, then it is that. But it, and because my teacher said and everybody agreed upon it and nobody asked any questions, then it is like that. But it's not like that. Everybody is prone to mistakes, and some things are right one at one point in time, and another point they're not right. Time things change. Others don't, but that's how it is. I don't understand why these people are like that. They're trying to what? It's such a bad attitude. Do you really want to learn? Do you really care about learning, or do you want to impress your friends? Do something else. If you want to get chicks, do some other shit. Chicks don't even like this kind of stuff. Be yourself. Maybe they like that better.
Let's suppose that Zeno's house is 1 mile from the park, and that Zeno walks at 1 mile per hour. Common sense tells us that the time for the journey should be 1 hour. But let's look at things from Zeno's point of view and divide up the journey into pieces. The first half of the journey takes half an hour, the next part takes quarter of an hour, the third part takes an eighth of an hour, and so on. Summing up all these times, we get a series that looks like this. Now, Zeno might say, since there are infinitely many terms on the right-hand side of the equation, and each individual term is finite, the sum should equal infinity.
But do we know even if it is infinite? It's interesting to learn what these people are thinking. They're like voodoo fucking magicians. It's voodoo. This thing ain't. It's magic stuff. Fucking levitating, all that shit. Probably, I don't know. Most likely levitating, speaking alien languages. I don't fucking know. These people are making gold from wine, from silver, from metal. I don't know. I'm just joking. But what these people were magicians. They were the actual occult magicians and masons and all that. You can read that. I don't know why they talk about all these Newton, Galileo, Pythagoras. They say Pythagoras so many fucking times. The dude was a straight up magician that he believed in so many things like sacred geometry, sacred numbers, and sacred ratios and all that kind of stuff. He had a cult. I don't know why they don't explain that. I mean, he was the one who kind of, I'm not gonna say interpret, but I'm gonna say invented. It's not invented, but whatever. He invented all this shit, and you'll take all this shit for granted you have right now because of him, but you're not gonna at least listen to the other things he has to say. And I don't know why they omit the probably most important thing that, I mean, you have to be open and put these things together. I mean, at least be open. Especially Newton. You read the fucking, there's a book on the Bible and how he interprets the Bible. Some spiritual shit. He was some spiritual. Or Tesla talking about energy and strings, and that shit is occult. He's talking about some weird ass shit, yeah.
Right? This is the problem with Zeno's argument.
What the
As
fuck
mathematicians have since realized, it is possible to add up infinitely many finite-sized terms and
the infinitely many. Are they really fucking infinitely many? What is even infinity? I don't know.
Still get a finite answer.
What is infinity? I mean, can you quantify it? What is it? You just keep going, but you don't know even if infinity, you can't prove infinity. Because you have to find the end to prove it, so you have to define it, you have to end it, you have to cut it. And then that'd be the final cut. Like, it's interesting about Atomos, or the guy who was talking about the atom. you eventually come into things that you cannot. Atom means undivisible. So it actually comes into to the end. I mean, a particle that is undivisible, and they named the atom of that, but the atom is divisible. So eventually, you go to something that it is undivisible. Would you? Would you not? I don't know. You have to find that thing to end it, to define it, to prove it.
How, you ask? Well, let's think of it this way. Let's start with a square that has area 1 unit. Now let's
Also, all these binomials, they come from geometry. I don't know why they think that geometry and algebra are two separate things when there's one and the same.
chop the square in half, and then chop the remaining half in half.
I think that's the goal. Which
And so
ratio
on.
is this? It's another ratio.
While we're doing this,
Golden
let's
ratio.
keep track of the areas of the pieces. The first slice makes 2 parts, each with an area of 1/2. The next slice we slice up the boxes. The square. We've obtained this. See how the paradox square.
Yeah,
We can now see how the paradox is resolved.
I mean, it eventually gets so infinitesimally small you cannot even touch it. But we so smart, supposedly. I don't believe that. Probably these people back in the day were smarter. They used some kind of other technique, magic, drugs. I don't fucking know, voodoo, to figure all this shit out. They had a real different way of life and real different understanding than the consumer bullshit mind of can I get the next iPhone that looks like the previous iPhone? Get my money.
Not only does the infinite series sum to a finite answer, but
164, 128.
that finite answer is the same one that
Yeah,
comes.
how come? How come is that? How come can you get like a side that is a square root of 2? These are all kind of ratios in relationships. I mean, they don't even exist. And for some everything leads to existence, and everything leads to existence. And the number 1, the numbers, or if you're gonna call it a number, whatever 1, I'm gonna refer to it as the number 0, the number 2. These are very interesting things that they always want ponder on, because that's true. I mean, some things come in numbers and in ratios and in that kind of relationship. So you get the 1, which means wholeness. No, you get one whole thing. That is wholeness. So you get one whole thing. 2 is just a copy of 1. 0 is the absence of that whole thing. So that's interesting. It's just you gotta get in more deep in that shit, and you gotta stop following the mainstream bullshit they telling you. 1 is just you write 1 like that, and you do 1 plus 1. But I don't even know what 1 plus 1 is. That's how these people are. They're stupid. They're just wasting your time. You're doing all these arithmetics. You don't even know what you're doing or where it came from, who invented it, who came up with it, what drugs was he on, what did he do, how did he come up with it. You don't know anything. It all has to come with context. You don't just do stuff without context. It makes no sense. You have to have context. Context is really important. A flower needs soil to live. That's their context. Otherwise, it's just a dead flower with a different context, a bad context on the cement. So I don't know. I mean, you get 1. 1 is a 1. Then you can divide 1 into a half, which is part of 1. And that's the ratio 1/2. It's divided 1 into 2 parts, 1 to 2. That's another ratio. You have a ratio 1 to 2. 1 thing to 2 parts. 1 thing in 3 parts. And they are 3 towards 1, or 3 times as big as 1. Multiplication is just addition, a shorthand method for addition. Power is just a shorthand method of multiplication. So, I mean, yeah. All this is weird. It's another misunderstanding of nature. So, you have this infinitely divisible thing. I gotta read Newton, but I wrote that fucking book in such a bad way, and people don't focus in the things I focus. They like to focus on stupid shit that they don't even know they're doing. They don't even know what I'm saying. What are numbers? What is geometry? They don't know. They don't know nothing. You gotta go to the basics. Your basic. If your foundation is bad, the whole building is gonna be bad. It's gonna fall over. You gotta go with the basics. You think the basics are basic, and there's no, but there's so much information in just the number one. You gotta think about the number one, the number two, and so on. And the number zero is the basic things. Negative numbers, they don't even exist. It just shows a direction. So it shows loss of that you owe money, or that is left instead of right. So +1 is right on a coordinate system, -1 is just the opposite direction, that much distance. So it's showing 1 is the value, and the negative sign is just a direction. It's not like a negative. It's not like everything exists. Everything is positive, in the sense, if you can understand me. It all exists. You cannot find something that doesn't exist for it to be a negative, or it's an antithesis, and the fucking shit. Antithesis. I think that's what it is. An antithesis. There we go. Direct opposite of someone or something.
Common sense tells us it's true. Zeno's
The
journey
black
takes
Sonic
1
and the
hour.
blue Sonic.
We have certainty about.
And you gotta go with philosophy. Is the study of knowledge, but not in the way that they read. You read books and you don't understand anything. That's not how it works. Maxwell equations. Aircraft. That's physics. Zeno's paradox. He knows number.
So Zeno's paradox is a problem that's not just of interest to mathematicians like myself, but it's also...
Yeah. Good for you. I don't care. The most talented human, Leonardo da Vinci. Born and raised like a bitch, nigga. Fucking hell. Zeno. Yeah, paradoxes. Euclid. I like Euclid. He was a good guy. Euclid's Elements. Book 5 is the most interesting one. But I cannot, because there's not enough information. I can't really get myself in their position, because people always saying dumb stuff. You have to imagine yourself in their position, in their point of view. So, because they used a whole different number system, and they thought differently, and they thought in a whole different way. That's how I invented this shit. They didn't have the incorrect information that we were given right now that makes us think one way. They missed out on all this useless information that we're fed. Well, they had other probably useless information, I don't know. But they have ours, so they thought differently. A magnitude of a part is a magnitude. I mean, that's because they translated like shit. I don't know even what all this shit means. I mean, I could look it up, but the greater is a multiple. Okay, let's see. That's interesting, because he's talking about ratios, and that's whole life is a ratio. That's so important to life. Am I bigger than you? Is that thing? How big is that towards that? Because everything is relative. You cannot have one thing without having its opposite. So you can't have something being big when something, if there is no something else that is small. It's all relative. For me, what is big is for you what's small, because you come from a different background. Can use better example, but whatever, you get the point. The two magnitudes mentioned in each definition are of the same kind. A magnitude is a part of a magnitude, the less of the greater when it measures the greater. The greater is a multiple of the less when it is measured by the less. I don't even know. Multiple is like the multiplication. What's a multiple? That's like one of the things that make up the product. The illustration shows two magnitudes, AB and B, and A is 1/3 of B. Since A measures B 3 times, so I mean they use the word measures, but we wouldn't use that word. We don't say that. But I understand because they thought differently, so they used different words. They had a different way of life. They lived differently than us, so they kind of took everything a different way. They said stuff different way, because their life, what they had to experience in their life was different, and how they lived their life was a lot different. So they say measures. But what they mean to say in our terms, because our life has things that their life didn't have and works in a different way, I'd say that A compares to B 3 times. The size of A fits 3 times into B, something like that. But I could see, because it measures it. You're trying to measure B, but you have to use 3 of A to measure B, to end up measuring B, to end up having the same value of B. The A is part of B, and B is a multiple. Thus, A is a part of B. Yeah, because A is a part of B, and B is a multiple of A. What is that multiple? Oh, they call it multiple. And I understand, yeah. Because you get multiple A's that could fit in a B. Yeah, I get it, what they mean. But it's kind of, the wording is so bad. What it is, ancient Greek. Nobody fucking even knows if we know how to translate that correctly, or even if you translate it, the life was so vastly different. How would you even know? Anyway, let's move to 3. A ratio is a sort of relation in respect of size between two magnitudes of the same kind. Magnitudes is like amounts, like how big things are, values. A convenient notation for a ratio of two magnitudes, A and B, of the same kind is A to B. All of Euclid's ratios are pure ratios of two magnitudes. I don't know what's a pure ratio, because they invented all kind of dumb bullshit recently. In other words, there are no mixed ratios in the elements. A familiar example of mixed ratio is velocity, the ratio of distance to time measured in units of kilometers per hour. That isn't to say that ratios of different kinds of magnitudes aren't equated. In fact, that's one of the most important aspects of ratio. For example, the fundamental proposition of Book 6 is given to a triangle of the same height. The ratio of the triangle is the same. Now, a common operation of proportions is that doesn't explain anything. I don't care about it. What does that mean? Why didn't they? The nature of ratio. Ratio is a pair of magnitudes of the same kind. Like, here's the question you might ask, because you just get this book written in poor English, translated poorly, from ancient Greek that we know nothing about, from a guy that we barely even know anything about. But we think about it. We look at this shit and say, how this come about? How did you just sit up one day and say, I'm gonna just write a bunch of shit that I see? For what reason? Like, why would you do that? I mean, let me just think about stuff and just put some stuff down. But how does that happen? How do you just put? How do you know what to put? How do you put all that kind of stuff? You know? How do you put all this? A ratio? Where do you begin? Operations on ratios of more than 2 terms. A ratio is a relation in respect of size between two magnitudes of the same kind. But what does that mean? What's a ratio? It's a sort of relation in respect of size between two magnitudes of the same kind. What is of the same kind? Of the same, like kilometer and kilometer, I guess. I don't know. I can kind of understand what they're saying, but they don't explain it well. Magnitudes are said to have a ratio to one another which can, when multiplied, exceed one another. The existing ratios comparable in the same kind, where comparable means each one multiplied can exceed the other. The ratio doesn't exist when one magnitude is so small or the other larger than multiple. The result from the definition is user predicted as axioms. I mean, I don't know. And this is really interesting because right here he doesn't even have the numbers like 1, 2, and 3. He has lines. If two similar plane numbers, whatever that means, multiplied by one other make some number, then the product is squared. Let A and B be two similar plane numbers, then let A multiply by B make C. See, how do you see how he didn't use numbers, he used lines? That's a way different way of thinking than us. He saw it, numbers is a different thing. So multiply A by itself to make D, then D is squared. Since then A multiplied by itself makes D, and B multiplied by B, and multiplied by B makes C. What does it mean multiplied by? How do you multiply a line? You mean like add? Do they add up to each other? And since every something therefore one mean proportional number falls between. Since as many numbers fall in continued proportion between those. How did he mention do this with lines? Although this is the first proposition in book 9. Vocabulary break. This is just A is 18, B is 8 as illustrated in. Multiply A by itself to make the. How do you multiply a line by itself? Multiply means double itself. A times A times A. I don't know. I'm too sleepy for this shit. All the geometry is pretty cool too, but even Pythagorean theorem. How do you come up with this dumb shit? I mean, these people were some astral projecting, talking to God or some shit. I don't fucking know. Arcade media.